Something.
There we go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Brent Ogden. I'm the museum coordinator here for Heroes Hall. Today, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce George Davis, who served in Vietnam from 1967 to 68.
No, 1970, 71.
I was only off by a couple of years. So with that being said, I'm going to have George introduce himself, and then we'll go right into the presentation. George, take it away.
Like Brent said, my name is George Davis. I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years, 1968 to 1972. And we're talking about, I guess, apparently the SCAMP unit I was in. Not too many people know what SCAMP is or was. It's still around. We implemented and implanted sensors along various trails, like the Ho Chi Minh Trail and places like that, to find targets of opportunity and to eliminate them. So that was kind of our job. And we'll go into a little bit of the detail on it. I guess a little bit of the boot camp. Oh, yeah. This was the last dollar bill I had before I hit Vietnam, so I kept it because you never know. And still have it. And teenage Marine, I guess the look of shock on my face is apparent from what boot camp was like. It's kind of like that movie Full Metal Jacket, except on steroids. A lot more hollering, a lot more hands-on. And my uncle had been in the Marine Corps, and he gave me the best advice that anybody had ever given me up to that point, which was, don't be too good, don't be too bad, be right in the middle. Just be, if they don't know who you are at the end of boot camp, you did your job. And I did my job. I am right dead center in the middle of our boot camp picture, because that's where I was the whole time. And when I went in to see my senior drill instructor the night before we graduated, he said the same thing. Why don't I know who you are? And the only thing you can say as a Marine at that point is, private doesn't know, sir. And he goes, well, you must not have been a poop bird, because I would know who you were. So he gave me the second best advice that I've gotten so far, which was, when you get through infantry training, which I didn't know at the time I was going to be in the infantry, because my recruiter had told me that due to my college stuff when I was in high school, that I would be an engineer. And when I got the MOS of 0311 basic rifleman, it was kind of a shock that he wouldn't lie to me just to get me to enlist. So there we are. So my senior drill instructor said, when you get through infantry training, there's going to be this burly sergeant come up, he's going to ask for volunteers for recon. And you will volunteer. You know, sir, yes sir. I'm not a moron. It's like, no. And so, true to form, we got through infantry training. And down at the second from the right and bottom, And this burly sergeant came around and said, I'm looking for volunteers for recon. So I volunteered. And everybody said, you have your mind, you know what recon does? And I go, yes, I do. They jump out of stuff. So we segued into, after a while being in recon, I'd gone to a bunch of schools, and we went to a school at Fort Benning, Georgia. It was like a kind of a Pathfinder's Ranger school. And my buddy lived in Phoenix City, Alabama, which is in that movie Walking Tall. And so we went into town, and I'm being the only one not from around there. I got arrested for driving under the influence and driving without a driver's license. But I was standing in a parking lot. I was not driving. They knew I was a Marine, they knew I had no choice, so I got the ticket. And the jail. This is for the Sergeant's Board. When I was with 2nd Recon, you go through a selection process to become a sergeant. And I'd been in the Marine Corps about, not quite a year and a half at that point. And I passed the thing and became a sergeant in 18 months, which was a little unheard of. But then I volunteered for everything, so, you know, they were like, we need this guy. That's on board a ship when I was with 2nd Recon on a Mediterranean cruise. It was probably one of the older ships in the Navy at that point in World War II, Liberty ship, landing ship dock, number 13, the Casa Grande. And we were on board with our recon team and a team of Navy UDT that we did a lot of operations with, and we did operations with the Royal Commandos. And as a teenager in the Mediterranean, jumping out of stuff and shooting automatic weapons was pretty darn cool. As I volunteered for everything, I was usually a crash test dummy for all the stuff that they wanted to do. This was on the Isle of Crete. Our recon team was teaching the grunts repelling, and it just seemed like kind of a cool thing to do. Great 6 months in the Mediterranean, working with all those guys. This was kind of like my first week in Vietnam. I was kind of like happy-go-lucky kid from small town Delaware. Yahoo, I'm here in the big leagues. And going out on my first sensor implant mission. And I looked probably about 12 years old, so nobody believed I was a sergeant. So eventually you'll see the mustache, as I had to make credibility that I actually was a sergeant and not some kid pretending. This was the first week we were snapping in with M16s. Up until this point, I had used nothing but an M14, which I felt and still feel is a really awesome weapon. And the M16 just felt a little weird. But again, they needed to snap us in so we were familiar with the weapons we were going to carry. Again, getting ready to go out on a sensor mission. This was probably a small insert where we were only out for a couple days because we didn't have much gear. And it was pointed out the gloves. Being a new guy, I thought, well, you know, gloves would be good because they were carrying a machete to cut through the brush and all that kind of stuff. And a really bad idea at 110 degrees with 100% humidity. So that didn't last very long. And that's my teammate, Corporal Fulvio. As you can tell, he was pretty tall. He was about 6'7". So he just barely made the limits. There was a cutoff on how tall he could be in the Marine Corps. So. But solid Marine, good Marine, went out on a lot of inserts with us. These two guys, the guy on the inboard side is Sergeant Hutchins, and he was kind of my mentor. Took me out on a lot of inserts to snap me in before I became a team leader. And another really good Marine was, I forget his first name, his last name was Houston. We called him Bro Houston because African American, and he liked to be called. Everybody had a nickname. This I was doing tail end Charlie on one of our inserts, crossing a stream, and every time you cross the stream, you had to do a leech check because the leeches would attach to parts of you that you didn't want them to attach to themselves to. And this is what some of the terrain that we humped through to put our sensors on, like little trails that were called in by some of the grunts that they figured that there were a lot of enemy activity on. So we would walk them like we were grunts, just walking around doing nothing of importance, and then we would bury our sensors. Now, there was a bunch of different sensors, and they first started out with what they called ADSIDs, which were air delivery seismic intrusion detectors. And they looked like a torpedo with a little rubber tree on the end, and you would drop them out of a helicopter. And the sensors all had radio transmitters, and they had a radio frequency ID that would come up like 02, 03, 04, whatever. So you knew when you put them in a line which way they were going. You had 02, 03, 04, and whatnot. So you could tell which way the enemy was going. They didn't work too well because the people out in the fields would see you dropping them, and as the military gave everybody money for bringing in stuff to them, they would just pull them out of the ground and bring them in and give their $50 or whatever it was for them. So they didn't work out too well. The next sensors we used were what were called mini-SIDs, or mini seismic intrusion detectors. And they were about the size of a motorcycle battery, green box. They had a key to arm them and a code like A7. You put A7, then you would turn it on. All the sensors had internal destruction, self-destruction devices if they were tampered with. Originally they put thermite in there, but they were having too many people getting injured on both sides. They would pull them out of the ground and it would explode and blow people's fingers off and stuff like that. So what they did is to kill the circuit board, they had a little mercury switch and would pour acid on the board and destroy them. So anytime you had to change a battery or input, then you had to know the code and have a key, turn them on and off. And this is just putting some in the ground. We typically deployed them 4 seismic detectors and 1 magnetic detector. Because when we were using seismic only, you couldn't tell if it was a water buffalo or an animal or something, but by putting a magnetic detector in it, you could tell that there was somebody carrying a rifle, or they had some kind of armament or metal on them, so it wasn't just some random animal. And again, they were serial numbered, so you could tell which one was which and which way they were going, and they were fairly sensitive up to about 10 meters. Our team, they gave us all instamatic cameras with a bunch of film, and we not only did the sensor implants, but we took pictures of the surrounding areas for reconnaissance reasons, that when they were going to engage enemy or use artillery or aircraft, they would know that there's actually villages around, that they didn't want to have any civilian casualties due to somebody shooting in the wrong area, and it was just peaceful people. And so we would, wherever we were, we would take pictures. Okay, this is a certain area. This is the main thoroughfare where people would drive. That's a typical conveyance that was always overloaded with too many people, too much stuff. Another village, you can see they have a water buffalo, and it just, so the guys back in the rear in G2 intelligence would know what was going on, and that, hey, we have to be careful if we're shooting in this area. They had certain areas that were no-go where you had to have eyes on, and other areas were called pre-cleared fire zones, where if you got any activity in that area, you could just fire it up. It was just like, you know they're bad guys, there's not supposed to be any good guys out there, So immediately after you got clearance, artillery or airstrikes would take care of whatever the situation was. This is just a typical area just outside Da Nang. Some were living quarters and some were shops that people put up to, make a living. This was like an open air kind of a little marketplace, and you could buy virtually anything there. And there was a lot of black market going on in Vietnam, and we as American service people had access to the PX system, the storage. You could go buy, like fans or refrigerators or TV, whereas the Vietnamese people had very limited access to that kind of stuff. So the black market was the soldiers or whomever would go buy a fan and they would sell it for double the price to some Vietnamese people who couldn't get that kind of thing. That's maybe one of the reasons why they instituted the military payment currency, which was they would take away all your greenback American dollars and you had just military currency, because that way you couldn't really deal in the black market with that because the military currency wasn't good anywhere outside of your military environment. But again, you could buy Cokes or cigarettes or, anything. This is just like a living quarter. You can see that the buildings there were not the code, as the wires are just hung off of a random stick that's stuck in the ground. But personally, I always felt that the Vietnamese people were very ingenious. They could make anything out of anything. I mean, they took scraps and cardboard and throwaway pieces of metal that the military didn't want and made homes and buildings and stuff out of it. They were very resourceful as far as making things happen. Little kids always seem to be kind of interested in us, like, who the heck are these guys? And most of the guys, if you had any candy or anything, you would give the kids some candy or whatever, because, they're just little kids. I took this picture because I'm a guy and I like girls. It sort of shows a little bit of a difference in the Vietnamese, where, one girl's wearing kind of a traditional outfit, and the other girl's wearing a little more Western kind of mini dress kind of thing. And they were probably walking into Da Nang City proper, where they probably had jobs in an office or something. I'm not sure. And again, the resourcefulness. I mean, you could build anything out of anything. I mean, this is just a storage warehouse that they had outside of Da Nang. And you can see it's built by whatever they could get their hands on. This one goes later into my first tour, where we had gone out just before TET, and one of our center strings, Marine Corps had what they call a CAP unit, Combined Action Platoon, that they would take 10 or so Marines and they would live in a village with the Vietnamese people and show them how to dig wells and how to do more advanced agriculture and just basic things, and live with them, kind of the hearts and minds, showing the people that, hey, we're just not these guys that blow everything up, or we want to help you survive, and we want to show you how to have a better life. And they were getting a weird reading on just one sensor, and it just didn't make sense, because if one went off, they all should have eventually go off. And so they sent my team out, and we were going into the village to talk to the people to see what was going on, because things just didn't look right. And we're walking around this rice paddy, and everybody moves over to the left side, so we know we're walking into an ambush. So we go, not going to go that way. So we walked around, went the back way into the village, and when we got in there, there was maybe 10 people that lived in the village, and they had rice bowls laid out for like 35, 40 people. So we knew that they were probably going to feed or resupply either Viet Cong or NBA regulars. So we did a search and we found hidden weapons and ammunition and stuff. And we took the village chief here in and turned him over to the South Vietnamese Army interrogators. And they did what they did. So we went back and went to the center, and I had a way of checking the sensors because you never knew if they were going to be booby-trapped or not. Some were, a lot weren't, but some were. And I had a K-bar and about 100 feet of twine, and I would dig around with my K-bar, and if I didn't find anything, I would uncover the antenna, tie a string on it, and pull it out after I put the code and the key in to shut it off. And I pulled it out, and I checked it, and everything was good. The battery wasn't bad. It shouldn't have malfunctioned. And as we're looking around behind some foliage, we see a cave. And we're like, holy crap, there's a tunnel. There's a tunnel that went out there. So the reason only one was going off is they were coming through this tunnel and going into the village to resupply, getting ready for TEP because they were going to do some not so good stuff. So we brought in some EOD guys. They blew the tunnel. We put a new sensor in, and our team stayed over that night with the Cat Marines. And this was on Hill 10, so the hills were by meters, so it's 10 meters, which is not really much of a hill. So they had a pretty good compound. They had a 50 caliber and a M60, and with my 8-man team, we had 18 Marines, and we were kind of watching the sensors. And there's some later pictures where we had the readout device called a Portatel, where you could tell where the sensors were and which ones were activating, and then you could call in and tell people, hey, number 8's going crazy, there's people out there. So we stayed over to make sure everything was cool. And I never slept much, and I really didn't sleep when we were out on inserts. So I was up on watch with their gunny, and we had a Starlight scope, and we were checking. I was like, Gunny, I think a tree's moving. He goes, really? I'm like, I don't know, man. So more we're looking, we look, and we look, and we go, yeah, that tree is moving, and the tree has an AK-47 attached to it. And we're like, oh, that's not good, because there's 18 of us, and we don't know if there's like a bazillion of those guys out there, and obviously they're bringing people down because of the tunnel and all the stuff that's going on. So our team was, again, I don't know what happened. I broke it.
I left the remote up there.
Oh, the remote. Yeah, I'm a Marine. Get that thing away from me. Huh?
No control.
We either break it or, no, I'm not going to say the other part. So, we see the tree moving. Our team, because of we were pretty, I don't want to say top secret, but we were classified. We always had backup with gunships, so we called in some gunships, and they brought a Huey gunship and two Cobra gunships, and Huey had this huge light on it. I think they call it a xenon light. And when you turn it on, it's like daylight. It's like, so we waited for them to get on station. All of our Marines were set up, ready to go. And the minute they turned the light on, we just opened up on them. And there must have been like a couple hundred. They weren't VC, they were NBA regulars, which caused us a little bit of a pause. Fortunately, the Cobras and the gunships opened up and stopped us from getting overrun. And the next morning, G2, which was the unit that we worked under, pulled our team out. And unfortunately, the next night, that team got overrun by the NBA. So I'm sure this guy who was being interrogated by the Arvins didn't have a very good time after that one. And it was all due to the build-up for the TED offensive, which they did carry out. Again, another scenery picture where you can just see the difference in the landscape for the lowlands versus the highlands and the mountains. This little guy was kind of like a story involved, like with everything. I was kind of maybe 10 or 11 months into my tour, and we've been on an insert that didn't really go as planned, and we stayed on an OP, and we got hit the night before, and we were down that morning and checking, and there was a water buffalo and 3 dead VCs, and an Arvin came up and wanted to know who was in charge. It just happened to be me because I was a sergeant, and he wanted money for the water buffalo, and the kid that was one of the VCs who was killed. And I kind of tried to logic with him that, like, well, if he's a VC and he's your kid, you're kind of a VC too, dude. I mean, you're standing here in an Arvin uniform. Which is it? I mean, is this your kid, or are you a VC, or you're an Arvin captain? And he didn't have really a good response, other than he wanted $100 for the kid, and he wanted $600 for the water buffalo. And people that know me know that I don't really have a really good way of handling anger. And I put my 45 against his head and told him if he didn't get away from me, that there was going to be something coming out of the end of the 45, and it wasn't going to be good. And I think he believed me by the look on my face, and he left. So at this point, we're compromised, so I call in the rear to get an extraction. We walk down to this point and getting ready for our extraction. I'm in a really bad mood. And I see this little kid walking up the road, and I'm like, now what? I mean, good grief. And so the little kid comes up, he's such a pleasant, happy little kid, and he says he wants to be a Marine because he wants to protect his mom and dad from the bad guys and his little sister. And we're like, oh, this kid was so upbeat, it was just infectious. So right away, we're all like, no more bad mood, we're all like, we like this little guy. He's like, you know, he's a cool little dude. So we could tell he didn't really have much, so we took all of our rations. We had long-range rations, like dehydrated food and stuff, because we were, like, special. We got all the cool shit. And so we lump it all together. We had a waterproof bag that we would put valuables in. So we put all this food in that we had left, because we were going to get pulled out in like 20 minutes. And so we put it in a bag and gave it to him. And I had a spare Marine cover, one of our barracks covers. And so I gave it to him because I had a Marine Corps emblem on it. And that was like Christmas. He was just a happy little guy. And so our chopper comes in to extract us. We're getting on the chopper, and he's out there saluting us. And we're like, that little guy is really cool. So I hope he made it out there. It just changed the whole tone of everything. Everybody was just like, you know, this is why we're here, to help little guys like this, you know. This was on an insert that went really bad. We're crossing the river. It was like I like to take my team out by ourselves, because having been in reconnaissance, we always wanted to be quiet. And the whole idea for our team was to get in, plant our sensors, and get the heck out. If they knew you were there or they found you, you screwed up. You weren't supposed to be known that you were there. And anytime we worked with the Arvins or the grunts, it was like a big production. It was like spotlight, noise and choppers and all kinds of crap going on. Well, this one was out in the infamous Arizona territory outside of Benoit. And it wasn't like if you were going to get hit, it was like when. And they put us on the wrong side of the river. And we're like, really? I mean, how long have you guys been doing this? I mean, it's a pretty good sized river. So we get off the chopper, we get ambushed immediately, and so we get through that. We go down to the edge of the river, we hire these village guys, which probably were waiting for us, to take us across to the other side of the river. We give them, I don't know, $5 or something to get across. And it's just one of our Marines that was in my team. This is another Marine in our team. It was not only a 3 ambush day, it was a 3 medevac day. And probably about an hour after this, he was medevac due to heat exhaustion. So I never got to see him again. On this patrol, I was like just a backseat kind of guy with Sergeant Hutch being in charge, and then this other sergeant. And it was just like, I hadn't become a team leader yet. That's one of our hooches back in the rear with the sandbags on the bunker when we took incoming. You'd run out of the hooch and jump in the bunker. Another hooch back in the rear with various tools of our trade. I know it's stupid, it kind of reminds me of the Full Metal Jacket, the duality of man, peace through blowing stuff up. I was a kid, I don't know. My cohort in crime, Stavo Balasek, he'd been in Force Recon, and so we clicked right away, having been in Recon Marines. And so he's also the guy that helped me get court-martialed. This is one of our hooches out in one of the hills. There were usually 3 Marines on the readout sites. Everybody took shifts, and there was always one Marine watching the equipment to see if there was any activity. So it was 1 sleeping and 2 awake typically. One of my team members good solid Marine, he was kind of a goofball. He was like doing a pose, look at me mom, I got big muscles. Sergeant Hutch again on the left. One of my team members, Corporal Corey, another good solid Marine that was on my team. My whole team was a bunch of good guys. We just had really good Marines. I still keep in touch with Corporal Corey. He's living up in Oregon, and we talk about the old days, and we lie to each other about how cool we were. Corporal Peterson, I volunteered for everything, and Peterson was kind of like the same way. You could always count on him on going out on our inserts, and we were just implanting some sensors along this trail, and we had so much film. We took just a boatload of pictures, and the ones that didn't seem important to the intelligence community, they would give back to us. So we had a boatload of pictures of stupid stuff like, I have puka shells. Another one at Bro Houston on one of our observation posts. I think that's up around Charlie Ridge. I don't remember. A lot of times we would get captured weapons, and this just happened to be an AK-53, which was a short stock AK-47. And we did a little bit of trading with the Air Force on beat up, rusty captured weapons that Intel didn't want. As Marines, anybody under the rank of E6 couldn't buy liquor. We could buy free beer, but we couldn't buy liquor. So we would trade these beat up, rusty artifacts for liquor. And so we would bring them back, show them off, and then trade them for alcohol. This is Sergeant Daugherty. Another one of our team members when I had been in country a while. He had been a dog handler, and he was just glad to be out of doing it. It didn't end well for him. This is one of our Marines. I remember his name because it's easy, Mark Twain Moore, and we used to call him Motor T, and he could find anything. Matter of fact, his claim to fame was he found an Army Jeep, repainted it, and put Marine Corps numbers and stuff on it. He did a really good job. And if you wanted anything, Motor T could get it for you. This was like toward the end of it. He had, I guess, tripped a small booby trap and got wounded, so he was regulated to staying back in the rear for a while. And he joined, there was a lot of Black Power movement at that time, late 60s, early 70s in the military. And the DD Mao's were a offshoot of the Black Power Marine kind of unit. So he sort of got into that, and it was sort of a shame. It didn't help his career out any, because the military in general and the Marine Corps especially was clamping down on anyone who didn't go along with if you didn't go along with the program, then you were in trouble. That's our sign, stamp. We're under the G2 division of the 1st Marine Division of Ground Surveillance. And the logo was the eye that never sleeps, because we're always awake, we're always watching. Excuse me. The whole Vietnam thing was psych op on both sides. The Vietnamese were, the booby traps and the ambushes were psychological warfare against the Americans, because you never knew. You could walk out to go to the bathroom and get shot. With this, we were throwing flyers out and other things, showing them that we're watching you and we're going to get you, we're going to find you. And it was all part of the coordinated psychological program against them. These are some of the flyers that they would throw out of helicopters, telling the Vietnamese people to chew hoi or surrender. You come over to our side, we're your buddies, we'll give you food, we'll take care of your family, and you won't have to, live out in the jungle and just be in misery. I'm not sure quite how that worked too well. Everybody had a card they would leave if you did something you wanted the bad guys to know that was you. We were kids, after all. We had adopted this orphanage in Da Nang, Catholic orphanage, and we had our folks send us like clothes and toys and things for the kids, because they had virtually nothing. We'd even go to Charlie Med and swipe some supplies for them, because they needed supplies because some of the kids were injured. But our parents, being Americans, didn't realize that these kids really didn't need cap guns and little rifles and toy soldiers to play with. So we played with them. Busy hands, happy hands, you know what I mean? And toy soldiers, like, I'm letting my guys up here. No, I'm putting my guys over here. So I can't explain it. We also, on the downtimes, we had barbecues. Most of the time, being in the Marine Corps, we were like the redheaded stepchild of the military, and we got hand-me-downs from everybody. So when we got steaks or chickens or whatever, we normally had appropriated them from the Army somehow. And in order to barbecue it, we had Agent Orange barrels that we cut in half and used them to grill the meat and stuff. Not knowing that wasn't a good idea at the time. They even let me barbecue stuff. And my wife will tell you, you should just give me a gun, because I am not good with that barbecue stuff. So I may have harmed more Americans than the BC with this barbecue. I'm not sure. It was not good. They had USO shows. This was at the NCO club right outside of Da Nang, Camp Reasoner. And the Filipino bands would come in, and sometimes Vietnamese bands, and the Marines will go in and get a little entertainment, a little downtime. This is the NCO club. Again, Sergeant Dowry, I don't remember the other Marine's name. And so we go have a couple beers. Beers were like 15 cents. This was outside of the NCO club. The original guy that ran the NCO club was kind of a jerk. And I don't know if he was embezzling from the Vietnamese waitresses or just being a jerk to them. And he was really proud of this. It was a three-hole outhouse, and he was like super proud of it because nobody had a three-hole or fancy outhouse. So they did him a favor and burned it down for him for being a jerk. And he got transferred out kind of like right after that. So I just thought it was a cool picture. One of the bar girls that worked there, and they worked very hard, and we appreciated them. I mean, we really took care of them, and we would hear like, oh, a bunch of Marines, oh, that poor girl. It was like, that was the safest place in Vietnam for her. It was like, anybody messed with any of those girls, they were taken outside and dealt with. We did not put up with any of that kind of crap. And especially this girl, we called her Baby Son because she looked so little and young. You didn't even talk loudly to her or else you'd get escorted outside. Occasionally we had USO shows come in this was from Australia, and I was really impressed. I just got out of 95th back for the, I think, second time. And I was pretty impressed with a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, because we hadn't seen one in a long time. But holy moly. Marine. I don't give any excuse for that. It's one of our observation posts. I think it was LZ Ryder. Down at the bottom are some of our hooches that we lived in. There's a landing zone in the middle with a water buffalo that was a water tanker. And up there was a command center up at the top. And this observation post had what they called a night observation device. And it used infrared technology and a rudimentary computer, which was kind of weird. It would, a big ship's binocular, and you pre-programmed in the area around there, and it would give you coordinates within 10-meter accuracy. So that was like a pretty big deal in those days. So you could get fire support in pretty accurately using that nighttime observation device when the sensors tripped. In the daytime, we had an IOD, which was an infrared observation device, which did kind of the same thing. So it's like some pretty sophisticated stuff back in the day. And this hill got a lot of action because I think that's Charlie Ridge in the background, and it was called Charlie Ridge for a reason. Same hill, different shot, with a CH-46 probably resupplying us. Another shot looking at it at a different location. CH-46, you can notice that none of the windows were in it because when somebody's shooting at you, you don't have time to open a window. You have to kind of like shoot back or else get shot down. I'm on an insert going, I think, into Alligator Lake. On this one's kind of late into my tour. And again, with Corporal Polio sitting next to me. This is our hooch back in the rear at Camp Reasoner. This is on one of the hills. I think it's up by High Bond Pass, one of our readout sites. This was our luxury accommodations, 3-star. This is Corporal Burt Ruiz, one of my team members on one of the hills. He's doing a John Wayne shot for posterity with a .50 caliber, And I believe it's a 106 recoilless up on top of that bunker. So it probably was out in the Quaisans where we saw some pretty heavy probing. This is up on an observation post in High Bound Pass, not too far from the DMZ. We had, again, relatives, our admin guys back in the rear would send us like hot sauce and stuff. We had canned dehydrated steaks. So on the observation post, we ate pretty good, lots of sea rats, of course. And occasionally, by taking care of our admin guys, they would send us a couple cases of beer on ice from the NCO Club. So we were really popular with the grunts on the hill. And you got a couple cases of cold Budweiser, you're a good dude. This is Bert again on one of the, I think this was at Camp Reesner. Like I said earlier, we could buy refrigerators at the PX at Freedom Hill, and you could stock it with, I think that was Pabst Blue Ribbon, whatever cheesy beer you could get your hands on. And then the cans were like canned ham or canned steaks, all dehydrated stuff, really good. This is kind of like, don't look. Peterson, in his spare time, went and got a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and he got all these tapes of various music and stuff, so I'm wearing the headphones listening to some rock music or something. We also had AFVN that was in that one movie, Good Morning Vietnam, where they would come on the radio and play rock and stuff. So back in the rear, we did have some amenities. I'm still wearing my Rolex that I had gotten when I was in recon. We had choices between a Zodiac Super Seawolf and a Rolex Submariner. And I took a Seawolf at first. First time I went below 30 feet, it filled up with water. So it wasn't a very good diving watch. And so I gave it back to him after I destroyed it, trying to get the water out, and got the Rolex, which I carried all through recon, all through Vietnam, and now my son has. So it made it home with me. The ring did not, however. I don't know why they would steal the ring and not the Rolex, but go figure. Sergeant Hutch, another Marine I don't know, and we're showing off the booze constantly because we couldn't get it. It was a big deal. It was like, yeah, I got booze. The guy on the right, Sergeant Shoemaker, kind of a crazy man. He was like a cowboy, I guess. And he'd been wounded a couple times, Silver Star recipient, and it was always exciting to go out with him. There was always something going on. We like to play around. I still have no idea why we're doing this. And of course, mugging for the camera. This was at High Bound Pass, just below the DMZ. Again, the same place when we're not being stupid. And my mom sent this Valentine's thing, but it was there like 2 months late, but it's okay. It was melted and bad, but it was still chocolate. So apparently I enjoyed it. And this is again at High Bound Pass, just below the DMZ on the readout site. Again, a lot of John Wayne pictures. This was our teammate on one observation post, Filipino Marine. I forget his last name. His first name was Saul, and he wanted a John Wayne picture to take home and show home to his mom. So this is Saul and Bert Ruiz again, digging a fighting hole because we were always going to get some kind of probing. Bert kind of screwed up and the hole was a little too deep, and then the first rain, it filled up with water, and it was useless. He had to dig another hole. So Bert learned from that. Another hill looking out over the terrain. The terrain could be anything from elephant grass to a rice paddy to triple undergrowth up in the mountains somewhere. So you never knew where you were going to go or how you were going to do it. The one thing we had as a special unit was we got to do flyovers on where we were going to insert our sensors and where we were going to be. So I would fly over where we were going to be inserted and make notes where I wanted to go, how I wanted to go. I had a plan A, plan B, plan C, because they always go wrong. And different extraction points for where the choppers could come get us when things went bad. And so we had extraction point A, extraction point B. So by doing a flyover, I kind of knew the terrain before we had to go in and walk it, which unfortunately the grunts did not have that option. Again, just showing the differences in the terrain. I think this is going out over Freedom Hill, and that's kind of like Da Nang looking out toward the ocean. And another picture of a chopper, some of the trails and highways. I've been in country for a while at this point, so I obviously had a bad attitude. But I always say this is my happy face, because my wife could tell you that. That is my happy face. And it must have been a short insert because I wasn't carrying very much gear.
Was that a sensor on your hip?
It was, actually. That's one of this right here is actually one of the mini SIDs. It's one of the seismic sensors. And I can't remember now if it was a bad one or a good one. I think it's a bad one just looking at my expression because things hadn't gone well. And Bro Houston was looking like, what the heck's that over there? So typical elephant grass in the background. I still have scars on my arms from that crap. This is some mortars we called in. There were some bad guys on the ridge, and people that have been in country know that typically with mortars, they'll bracket 500 meters out, 500 meters behind. This was 500 meters in front of us. This is where we were, sitting along a bomb crater. And when it went 500 meters in front of us, and then they shot 500 meters behind us, we kind of knew we were going to be in the middle on the next volume of mortar fire. So we all jumped in the bomb crater and called for check fire. It turns out there were some Arbins on the mortar tubes, and whether they did it on purpose or not, I don't know. We never could find them. Some of our teams back in the rear, Corporal Corey, Motor Team Moore, myself, were really proud of getting some Jim Beam. And Corporal Greg Tom, we used to call him Superman. When he first got in country, he was a bodybuilder, so he was a big kid. And fortunately, he was a very easygoing guy. And he was from Manhattan Beach. And when we all got back, we went down and visited him. And he had a little place along the coast. It was great. We did a little partying. It was good to see him again. Our team back at Camp Reasoner, my buddy Balasek, Rocky, Johan. I don't remember the guy in the back with a cigarette. The tall guy in the back was Bullwinkle, hence Rocky and Bullwinkle. They always hung out together. And then Corporal Peterson, the Marine on the right is Corporal Dieter Cross, who was just like one of the best Marines I ever served with. And unfortunately, we just lost him due to Agent Orange, but good, solid Marine. We had a little puppy. She didn't last long because I guess somebody got hungry. Yeah, it was like, we went out and insert, came back, and no puppy. We were like, not happy. Out on an OP, just toward the end of my career out in the bush, and we got word that some colonel was coming out to check everything out, and I looked kind of raggedy, and it was suggested that maybe I wanted to shave and clean up a little bit. Unfortunately, the colonel came out while I was shaving, and I was out of uniform, no cover, schmeg on my face, and great. So he seemed to be cool about it, and I didn't get court-martialed that time. This was Da Nang Air Base, the Air Force pararescue choppers. Those guys are some bad dudes. Nobody really heard too much about Air Force pararescue, but they're on par with SEALs, Green Beret. I mean, they're just some really, really good guys. I mean, they would go out and get down pilots or people who were in areas that nobody else could get to. These guys went and kept saying up good stuff about them. Also, they bought us a lot of liquor when we stopped by their NCO club. They had the best NCO club ever. They had slot machines and like real waitresses and real food, and they even had a swimming pool in Da Nang. We're like, seriously, you guys got a swimming pool? So anyway, but pararescue, awesome guys. Again, going back to our unit being a special unit, we had close air support on inserts and extractions, and this Cobra was just one of them. This is the Recon LZ, just a little below Camp Reasoner, that we use as well. We're waiting to go out on an insert, and the choppers are backup, so we're probably going into the Arizona territory because we really didn't need heavy armament, just going out on what we consider milk runs close to Da Nang. CH-46, same LZ outside of Camp Reasoner. CH-46 taken off. Same LZ, you can see the Recon kind of emblem in the background. And another CH-46. A picture outside of, I'm not sure where that is, but out the back ramp off of CH-46. And some of the mountains that we were on were so high that you were above the clouds. So, you know, on those occasions, you didn't see anything down in the valley. This is just before my court-martial. I looked kind of raggedy toward the end of it, so our two admin guys, Steve and Cecil, decided to clean me up so I wouldn't go to Fort Leavenworth. And they got me a new uniform because mine, when you saw what it looked like in a couple other pictures, it was not Marine Corps clean. And they got me a haircut and a shave and a mustache trim and a new uniform and new boots. And they wanted to take a picture like, you're not going to believe this is the same guy. He actually looks like a Marine in this picture. So it turned out well. The colonel decided that the person trying to get me in trouble was wrong about me. He wasn't, but you know, I did disobey a direct order by the commanding general. And it was as stupid as it sounds. Me and Steve Balasek decided that since we were recon Marines, that we were going to sneak out. We had like 5 days left in country. And we're going to sneak out the wire and go out into a village just to prove we could do it. And to make it even more interesting, we're going to go out by the guard gate because anybody can go out with a wire. I mean, that's easy. Well, 24 beers later, we'll go out with a wire. And we almost made, well, Balasek made it. I didn't. I got caught in a concertina and got lit up by the guards at the gate. And so they're like, what's the password? Well, I don't know. And they're like, how do we know you're not BC? And I go, do I sound like a BC? And they're like, well, we don't know. Who was the first baseman on it? my wife will also tell you, I know zip about sports. So they're like asking me, who's the guy, who's the pitcher? I don't know. They're like, well, you know, and I'm thinking like, these are all office guys and they can't wait to shoot somebody and it's gonna be my dumb butt. So I started screaming at them and finally said, okay, no, VC don't swear like that. So they came in and arrested me, of course, and this lieutenant who hated me decided that that was going to be my ticket out of the Marine Corps. And it turned out it didn't work out that way for him. The colonel happened to be a former recon Marine and looked at my service record and like, this doesn't jive with what this guy is telling me. It's like, you did this, you've been there, you did that. Yes, sir. You could have went home because you've been medevac 3 times. Yes, sir. And why didn't you go? Well, I wasn't done. I couldn't leave the rest of my Marines here. So he liked that answer. So I got a suspended bus for 3 months. And all I had to do was not be myself and be stupid for 3 months. It was tough. But I made it through the grace of God. This is one of the vehicles that we would use. It was a little light armored vehicle, and anybody who knows Marines know we put weapons on everything. We put a M60 on a skateboard if we could. And so they put an M60 and a 50 caliber on the back of one of these, and we drove out to whatever close insert we were going to go on. Same vehicles. This is one of our observation posts up in the mountains. One thing I was good in school was skipping class and drawing. And so I drew a little rat thing on our board out in the mountains. And one of the things is embrace the suck when you're in the, we know it's going to suck, so just embrace it, embrace the suck. And so I said, it sucks, and it's a Marine out in the field because it's going to suck no matter what. The picture to the right is Captain Telford. He's one of our COs, great CO. He came up from the enlisted ranks, and he had never been out in the bush, and he had like a week left in country and wanted to go out in the bush, and it was me that was designated as the guy he wanted to go out with, and I was like crapping bullets because it's like, I can't get the captain killed. You know, it's like, this guy didn't have that much time in country, he's a good guy, and if I do something stupid, so I'm nervous the whole time, and it was a kind of a milk run outside of Da Nang, so we got him back safe, and he got to go home. But super officer. This is one of our readout sites, the one that has my artwork on the wall. And in the background is the readout device called a Portatel for the sensors. And the other one is a kind of a cipher set. One of the things that we didn't want them to know was frequencies. We didn't know where they were. We didn't know how we were implanting them. We didn't want them to know anything about it. So any radio transmissions from us back to the rear was encrypted. And I had a top secret clearance with crypto access, which the crypto was knowing what the codes were. And so we would do that. And by doing that, we had to be investigated by the FBI doing what they call an NTAC background check. And he went and talked to everybody from my past, which was a bad thing. And they talked to my mom. So I get a letter eventually from my mom. Why is the FBI talking to me? What did you do now? I'm going for a security clearance, Mom. I was like, I didn't do anything bad this time. I'm honest, I swear. She's like, okay. So anyway, the readout device, the maps in the background, so we knew where they were. And again, I didn't go anywhere without my 45 and my K-bar, and 16s in the background. This is my last chopper ride from the bush off of that observation post back to Camp Reasoner with all my earthly belongings at that point. And this is just a fitness report from one of my NCOs that said I was dumb enough to volunteer for everything and I should be promoted. And that, you know, this is the I guess banner. It's up here that our team made when we got back to the States. We all got together via Facebook from a Facebook site that I'm one of the admins on called The Knob. And we have like 380,000 followers. And it's a safe place where we don't allow swear words or bad pictures or anything of that nature. It's a family run, so family, friends, and other veterans can go on that site and talk to veterans and we can share our experiences, because one thing a lot of us learned that keeping all of that inside was just eating us alive, and to be able to put that out there and have somebody listen meant a lot. So I ran into a lot of my teammates on this website, and we decided to get together, and I think it was 2013 we started talking about it, and in 2014 we got together and had a reunion, and I called the Sergeant Major of 1st Marine Division at Camp Pendleton and said, hey look, our guys are getting together, we know you still have a ground surveillance platoon, and how would you like to, you know, talk to some old Marines that actually, you know, formed this unit back in 1968, and maybe we could come on base and you could show us all the cool new stuff. And so they thought it was a cool idea, and they hosted us there, and my daughter Brittany and Brandon, my son, came and saw what the new Marines are doing with the surveillance stuff now. And they were very gracious and showed us around, and they invited us to their Marine Corps ball, which we went to. And so this is one of my dog tags and a Zippo lighter that my daughter has now. And the statutes of limitations are up, so yes, that is a roach clip. It was made from C-ration wire that went around and held the cases of C-ration together. It was the big thing then. Everybody, you know, you could hide your peace symbol. And I'm a Marine. Okay, we're just leave it at that. This is the 1st Intel Battalion of the Ground Surveillance Group, and these are some of our Marines that were still there and still present at the time to go to that Intel Battalion thing. The Marine in the red cap in the very back is Steve Bosworth, one of our team members. 55 years later, Beaver Cross is standing right behind me. I'm the knucklehead in the black recon t-shirt. And I think it's Don Bickham's behind you, you can't see. Glenn Petty is to my left, and Steve LaValle is on the right. And so all the team members that could make it at that point. We've since lost Dieter and Glenn Petty due to Agent Orange and problems. This is at the ball again. Steve LaValle, Steve Bosworth, their wives. Carl, who I'm still in touch with, he was one of the original Scamp Marines. He's one of the ones that set it up in 1968 when they were still using ground radar and a bunch of other stuff. And then there's me on the right. And that's my John Wayne picture. We all have one, but you can see in the background, there's a Corvette t-shirt in the background. So even though I was there, it was still a Corvette fanatic. And that's pretty much it. Any questions that I can answer? Or?
How handy?
The sensors, when they revealed any enemy activity, what was called in to deal with it?
It depended on where they were. If it was a pre-cleared fire zone, once we got the clearance from the people back in the rear, usually G2, that there were no friendlies in the area, then we could call artillery or air support to come in and just do what they do. And it was very effective. People would ask, what was the idea behind it and why did we do what we did? We felt, and myself coming from a reconnaissance background, it took Marines out of the field and it would keep them from having to go out on these patrols to find the bad guys and possibly hit booby traps or be injured or killed. So we felt that by using the sensors, we would save troops and save lives, which I think we did. And the reason that ground surveillance platoon is still active to this day has some credibility to say about that. And they have sensors kind of like what we were using along the southern border of the U.S. still. So they're pretty effective.
Mine was kind of technical. So you have a string of sensors on a trail or something.
Mm-hmm.
They would go off.
Yeah.
Did you have to do a lot of manual stuff to figure out where to send the artillery?
No, because we already plotted them on a map. And we knew like sensor 06 was the first. Sensor 07 was the next. The magnetic sensor would come up on that readout thing as 08 or whatever. So we knew which way they were going. And we knew if it was activated for a long period of time, there was a bunch of guys going by. So we would bracket the string and shoot in the direction that they were moving so they could walk into it. Obviously, we didn't want to blow up our own sensors. So they were pretty effective, actually. In zones where they were, like the ones where I took pictures of the villages and stuff, when they were close by, if deemed necessary, they would send a close action or a quick action team in to ambush them. We couldn't take a chance of like blowing up friendlies or doing that kind of stuff. So I think they were pretty effective. And,
Is it more automated now, do you think, where if the sensors go off and somebody says, yep, that's bad guys, it just...
yeah, well, we started getting audio about that time, and because I volunteered for basically everything, they sent me to this one school where they were starting to work with video. And the problem was the transmission. It just, you had to have repeater sites around because it couldn't get very far due to limited, we didn't really have satellite transmission then. Although I saw some SEAL teams with a satellite radio, looked like a big umbrella that they would unfold and they get on it. So very important for four-man teams, I guess, to get the heck out. But they had it very well coordinated, and it goes back to 1966 with Robert McNamara with the McNamara line and called Igloo White, where they were putting sensors along Ho Chi Minh Trail because they knew the bad guys were coming in and resupplying from North Vietnam. And they were pretty sneaky. They would, because we'd do flyovers, they took the trees and would bend them over along the trail. So a plane or something going over, you wouldn't see the trucks and stuff and the guys coming. So you needed people on the ground, you needed boots on the ground, or you needed sensors to track where they were going.
One more.
No problem.
The airdrop sensors,
Yeah.
you said that a lot of those just got picked up and turned in or
Yeah.
recycled.
Yeah.
Did they refield them or did they just give up on those?
They kept for a while, and what killed them with our unit was about a month into it, and I dropped a few myself. We would stand out on the runners with a gunner belt on a Huey, and one guy would stand out and drop it, and a guy would be on the other side with the, with a machine gun, making sure nobody was like running. And then there was a guy in the middle with that readout device, and go, okay, it went off, and then we plot it on a map. So as we would circle back around, you could see like people running from the field, and I'm like, great. But the Air Force, in their infinite wisdom, they had said, nah, this is outdated technology, and they gave an interview to Stars and Stripes about the ADSIT sensors, and they did a cutaway of the sensors, and we're like, really? So every one of these sensors we put in is now compromised. So we just went back to the hand implant sensors, and I think Brent brought up something earlier about they had little sensors they call PCIDs. They looked like dog poop, and they would throw them along a trail. They did not work well. What happened to them is what would happen normally to dog poop. It's like, great idea in theory. I'm sure some guy, yeah, man, we'll never know what it is. Dog poop normally didn't have an antenna in it. So, I'm a Marine, but I've got an IQ a little bit more than a houseplant. So, that didn't work well. So we stopped using the airdrop when they did that. But I personally felt that I was very fortunate because although I had the 0311 Rifleman MOS, I never served with a line company, so I don't consider myself a grunt, even though I did over 40 combat inserts. The grunts just had, you can't say enough good stuff about those guys of living through the conditions that they lived through. So if I called myself a grunt, it'd be an offense to them.
You're grunt adjacent.
Yeah, grunt adjacent. We like to call ourselves super grunts in recon, but we kind of had an ego. Yes, sir.
One of my friends was in the Army at G2, and it seemed after TET, everybody was surprised. Nobody knew it was coming. And even after that, it seemed that nobody in the higher up intelligence understood the value of the tunnels. And I know you were out in the field, but do you have any experience talking with some of those people and wondering why they were so removed from what was going on out in the field?
Yeah, actually, our unit, G2, ground surveillance, so before we had pre-meetings with the biggies at G2, and afterwards we had debrief meetings where, what did you see, how'd it go, what went on, what do you think? And it's like, they only wanted to hear what they wanted to hear coming out of your mouth, those words. And one of our recon teams were telling them about, like I was telling you, where they were bending the trees over, and they were bringing trucks down from North Vietnam. And these, like you said, the G2 guys went, no, that's not true, and we have flyovers, and there's... So, recon being recon, went and took a crap ton of C4 and went along the trail and waited for them to bring a truck, and they blew the truck up. And they brought part of the truck's axle back and put it on the guy's desk and goes, here's the truck that doesn't exist. So then all of a sudden they're like, so there was a big disconnect. And like I was saying about that one insert when we were with the Cat Marines, we were very well aware that it was TET and they were gonna, have an offensive. Because you could see the villages where everybody was acting strange. They were building up a lot of supplies, and especially that one village. And then the tunnels and stuff. And we saw a lot of sensor action during that that period. So, we used to say that military intelligence was a misnomer. It was kind of oxymoron, you know what I mean? And it was like, you're supposed to, with all the information they had, I guess it boiled down to one guy not wanting to get in trouble. There was a lot of officers that didn't want to put themselves out there because it could be a career ruining moment, if they flew in the face of what the powers that be thought should be or could be or would be. And so I always felt my job was to prove them wrong. And I had a lot of what they call non-judicial punishment things, like burning the crapper and doing the logistics of the scuba locker and just general scuzzy work for being a loudmouth. And I was telling Brent, the only medal I ever cared about, which I gave to my daughter, is the good conduct medal. Because I have no idea how that happened. When they sent it to me, I was like, you're kidding. They're pranking me. This kid, really? Seriously? I don't know how I kept rank. It was like, oh. And I think maybe the lieutenant thought, I just want to see what this Davis guy's going to do next. It was like, he's like free entertainment. So, but that's kind of about it.
Do you have any other questions?
Just one, on a typical insert, what would you carry out? M16, handful of mags?
Yeah, it depended on, where we were going, how long we were going out. Typically, we didn't spend more than 2 days out on an insert. And if we were going to Arizona Territory versus, say, just outside Da Nang, I'd take a crap load more ammunition. I normally carried 3 bandoleros of ammo, and always 4 canteens of water. And being special, we had access to stuff that SEALs and Rangers had. And so instead of carrying a lot of heavy stuff when it got cold, we had what we call a space blanket. And it was something they used in space astronaut guys. And it was very thin, very light, like aluminum. And you wrapped up in that thing and you could almost...
Oh, the thermal.
You could almost cook yourself. It was awesome. So I carried that in a poncho, and then a lot of socks, and a crap load of salt pills, and I don't know what they call them now, but we call them buffers, because I didn't sleep much anyway, but I didn't want to be caught sleeping and be dead.
You'll be high.
I'd rather sleep back in the rear. So we go out for like a couple days. A lot of long-range dehydrated rations, and I really had a thing for fruit cocktail. One of those things. Ration-wise. And then, your basic stuff. My 45, a couple extra mags, and my cable knife, and then my sensor kit, which was the 100 feet of string, and me. Because there was a couple times that they were booby trapped, which, worked out well.
That was funny you said that. In Afghanistan, they were using the really long poles with like a rake.
Yeah.
It was a rake for booby traps. And then when they found something, it was just a long piece of rope and they just pull it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I got all my fingers and toes, and so it seemed to work. Yeah. We had one that went bad with that second lieutenant that was a moron. I'm probing a sensor, it's booby trapped, and I could feel the click, and so I tied my string around it and got behind this big rock and was getting ready to pull it out. And he was a new guy in country, FNG, and he stands up to look as I'm pulling the string, and my teammate, Corporal Corey, like gangster tackles him and throws him on the ground just as it exploded. So kind of saved his life.
And that's how he repaid you.
Well, there was a bunch of other things involved. And we caught him doing stolen valor, so we had a team member who came to me, and I always picked my team, and if you didn't want to go out, I wouldn't take you out. And this kid was sure he was going to die, and I figured, he's right. It's like, he thinks he's going to die, and he's going to get us killed. So my friends in the admin in G2 got him transferred up there because he'd been a chauffeur in civilian life, and they needed a driver for a colonel. So in the interim, the general needed a driver, so he got to be a driver for the general. So we kept in touch with him. And he knew this lieutenant, and he came down and told me, "You're not going to believe what this jerk's doing." He's like talking stuff like he did all you guys as inserts, and putting himself and this flunky sergeant he had in for, Bronze Star, a bunch of other stuff. And I'm like, no, because he killed Sergeant Corey's Bronze Star application because he didn't want to look like a moron on the meritorious rail. And so we went in and I had something maybe to do with him getting jacked up in front of the colonel and then the general. And so he kind of held a grudge, and so he figured that was his way of paying me back. Other than that, all of our officers and our senior NCOs were just like really squared away guys. I mean, like anything, there's going to be a bad apple in something. But fortunately, all my units that I served with, especially reconnaissance, nothing but just like squared away Marines. So.
We have time for one more question.
Yes, sir.
How many medals did you receive throughout your career?
Less than some, more than others. I don't know. A few. Yeah. I never cared about that. The only thing I ever cared about was getting my Marines back. I do appreciate the fact that I got the combat action ribbon and Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry, but the other stuff kind of didn't matter. And a few years ago, they sent me this thing like, "Oh, you're available for a couple more medals," and I'm like, "And?" They're like, "Well, $60 a piece." I'm like, "Well, keep them." I didn't care. When I got out, I took everything and threw in a dumpster. Big mistake. But anyway, I never cared about that. I don't know, 8 or 9 maybe. I don't know. It wasn't about that. It was about, and I feel I succeeded in my job because I got all my Marines home. I never lost any of my Marines. So.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our speaker event for today. Our next speaker event will be on March 7th from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. with Mr. Tom Weaver, who was a early Vietnam U.S. Navy SEAL UDT. And then after that, March 28th, we have William Niniaga, who is, if I recall, either the 4th or 3rd highest decorated enlisted Marine from Vietnam. And then April 4th, we have a late war UDT Navy SEAL, Andy McTeague. And then April 18th, we have Hoa Pham, who was one of the ARVN officers who established the refugee camp down at Camp Pendleton in 1975. And then after that, Ronnie Geyer, who was a radio operator at Aya Drain with Colonel Hal Moore. And then on June 14th, we have David Kennerly, who is a Pulitzer Prize winner war correspondent who captured photography in 72, 73, and then became a presidential photographer from Nixon to Obama. And other than that, if you guys have any questions for Mr. Davis, feel free to come up and ask him, and we'll start turning down, and thank you very much for coming today.
Yeah, we can go. a B